Yes, sir. Start, sir.
Okay. So I cannot see any of them, right? I mean, they only see me, right? Okay. So welcome to all of you for this live session. So it's really a great pleasure for me to participate in this one and get a chance to interact with you in a limited manner. Of course, because of the number of students, I cannot, see all of you. I cannot see your face, but you can post your question and anything you would like to ask me, you can post. And then based on those questions or queries, I'll initiate the discussion. So please feel free to post some questions, anything regarding what I taught. Maybe something is not clear to you, or even something related to that, you have an interest and you want to probably take this opportunity to interact and learn a little bit more. Please feel free to do that. Meanwhile, I think some questions which came in the discussion forum or even in the, I think, Google form which was circulated, so I can start with those questions, but feel free to add more, and I'll be happy to, try to address those. One question was related to for modeling of a multimodal transport network for freight transportation. Can we use the same approach as we do for urban transportation planning? Yes, the freight transportation part I have not covered till now in details. There is one module where towards the end, I think last but 1 week, 11th week uh, is on that freight transport modeling. But generally, I would say that these four stages, somewhere the trips are generated and then they have a target destination, they get distributed using certain mode of transport, distributed again using certain routes, right? And which bring all, so many vehicles at a given location at a given time, creating road traffic congestion and resulting externalities, as you say, maybe emission, energy aspect, congestion aspect, all these. So the fundamentally, whether it is passenger movement or goods movement, some basic things are uh, really, very similar. And if you have understood this portion and developed your concept clearly, you can apply it. You can apply it for road transport, you can apply it for freight transport, you can apply it even for air transport. But remember that in each case, there are certain very specific aspects which also you should understand. Say, for example, when you talk about the freight transport, the disaggregate modeling, choice modeling, what we do in the case of choice of mode, that normally disaggregate modelings we do not use, right? So we largely use aggregate based modeling. Then there are certain specific product which have specific requirement. So the goods transport thing is actually in a way much more complicated as well. I mean, you will see that there are certain specific goods which always people will, transport by road. They will simply call a goods vehicle, a truck will reach, and then they will upload the goods and send it directly to the destination. Whereas there are some goods which people will always try to transport in a bulk quantity using rail. So there are certain, goods depending on their characteristics or nature, requirement. They have specific, reason for choice of the mode through which they would like to transport. And then, of course, there are things happen at the multi-layer. So even if you are transporting by, say, water, or using rail, then again the road will come into picture, and lot of things are involved in that. So fundamental concept what you will learn from this course regarding the passenger transportation, those fundamental concepts will definitely help you to work even in the goods transportation area or freight transportation area. But there are certain specific characteristics that you also should understand, right? So there are, the choice normally we say that, you see the toll, you see the value of travel time and so. But most cases, the goods transport, who is the decision maker? Not the driver. But passenger transport cases, maybe you are traveling, even if you are not driving, you are sitting inside the vehicle, and you will make a decision whether to use a toll road or save some time by paying some toll, or you have to take a non-toll. So many cases, people interview the truck drivers. Truck drivers are not decision makers, right? So certain aspects are very, very typical. Then another question I find that related to the how we got the curves which I have shown in the cross classification analysis. I think probably I've explained it clearly, but still what we do, it's basically you take certain characteristics, say household income or household size, and you create certain clusters or group or category, right? So if I take maybe uh, four category in one characteristics and maybe three categories in another characteristics, then I have created 12 cells or 12 categories or 12 groups. Then we collect the data from households, right? Say, for example, we collect the data for households, and then we distribute the households. Every household must be fitting into one of the cells. So you start allocating the households, whatever, right? And then now let us consider one cell. If you have certain minimum acceptable number of observed household in that category, because from 5 or 10 households in a cell, you cannot, acceptably, you cannot calculate the average value, because maybe you add one more, the average may change very significantly. So you need certain minimum, acceptable sample size for that. So then you simply calculate the average trip rate, maybe. Then once you have calculated, then you graphically plot it. Now, once you graphically plot it, connecting all these points, now you have a graph, which itself is like a model, or which itself, you can, translate it into a mathematical equation as well, right? So graph is also just another representation. Curve or graph is just a representation of a mathematical equation, right? And now you have X and Y will probably give the rate, and X is giving that particular variable. How that characteristics changes, maybe the income changes, and how the trip rate changes. So once you have those graphs, you can use those graphs in the future to calculate the trip rate in a reliable manner. And the fundamental is that certain stratification of household, their behavior is relatively more stable over time and over, even to some extent, across geographical region. Okay. So for example, high income people with high car ownership, their behavior is more or less remains stable. So if you, once you get converted from one group to another group, you start behaving in this manner, right? So similarly, whoever becomes once you become the minister, you start behaving like a minister. Okay. So every minister behave in the similar manner, or there are a lot of similarities. So it's something like that. So these categories are much more stable. So somebody belongs to a category, their behavior is more stable. So we create certain class or certain group or certain category, calculate the trip rate, and then with the variation in income or variation in car ownership or household size, multiple such characteristics you can take, and across those you see and plot the trip rates and capture the variation. So once you have developed such a car during the calibration of the model, then those cars are to be used in the future. Then another question was related to uh, another question related to the key values. I said probably this is in the context of regression model. So I said that the coefficient has to be statistically significant. Now, what is the simple meaning? Let us be very simple. We will not go to a statistics course and trying to understand in a very simple way. Simple way is what is significant and statistically significant. Say for example, you take the coefficient of cost. Now, if I express it in lakhs of rupees, then my coefficient value may come 0.000000 something. Right? The same thing, if you express just in rupee or in paisa, your coefficient value may be very high. Right? So, what is the coefficient value? That does not indicate anything, because that's very much dependent on the unit you are using for the variable. So what we need to check is the statistical significance of the coefficient estimate. Now, what is really statistical significance? Statistical significance is if you have a value, whatever, you have a value, but whether that number is statistically significantly different from zero. I repeat, whether that number is statistically significantly different from zero. So we want to ensure that it is statistically significant. Otherwise, what is the meaning? There is no difference between zero and that coefficient. So that means inclusion or exclusion of that coefficients, the matter is same. So it is just there in the equation, but it really doesn't contribute in explaining the variation of y. So every coefficient or estimate, if we are including a variable in the model, the coefficient estimate has to be statistically significant. So that we can check based on the p-value, and you can check it keeping some other things, confidence level or significance level, right? And normally we say 1.96, right, or 1.64. Generally, you will get value across that at 95% or 90% level, and so there are different levels. So at what level you are accepting it? So that is now the second point is there any difference between 51 and 17? Probably in my example, I use that. Now, 51 and 17, there is no difference. We only try to see that whether it is statistically significant. That means whatever is the acceptable threshold for that t value, whether it is more than that. The moment it is more than that, suppose 1.96, a value 2 is also more than 1.96, so it is statistically significant. A value of 51 or 100 is also statistically significant. So we don't try to distinguish whether it is 17 and 51. It doesn't really make much meaning. But what it means that whether it is the value is above the acceptable threshold. So at 90% level, 95% level, people use different, levels, to accept such values. So, whether it is beyond the threshold. If it is more the threshold, it is statistically significant. That's all. Don't try to conclude anything beyond that. Then, okay, how you can use rail transportation for congested old part cities? Using inland water transport is only selective for cities with rivers. See, as I said, the concept can be used very nicely, even if you are working on the water transport. Because water transport sometimes, maybe in most cases, will be a competing mode to rail or road, right? So you can travel probably using a road bridge, or if there is a cross ferry, right? You can just, many cases over River Ganga or big rivers, you have such kind of ferries available, right? So whether you will use the ferry, these are just two alternatives available to you. So as you have done the mode choice, right? So as it is between bus and rail, it could be also water transport is just another option. So all what we need to build in the characteristics of that alternative properly in the model. And some of the other things are will also come important, will also become important. You know, the planning level work, operational level work, everything slightly again is different. Gross level for the planning purpose, you can, it just bring in what is the cost, and then also once you cross the river using a ferry or so, then at the other end, how much is the transfer time to get the connected mode. Maybe you have to still take another bus to cover the remaining distance, because it's not point to, from your origin point to destination point, the whole trip cannot happen with water transport, as it cannot happen with probably the bus system. So you need to take that access distance and then the last mile connectivity and all those. So it could be water, it could be rail, it could be, other modes of transport. There is no problem. The other question, as you said, yes, there is a limited opportunity. Not every city you will be able to use inland water transport so advantageous. That is true. But the question is that if you want to really estimate the demand, that new transport service, how it will help. You can surely use, code it properly, bring that mode of transport, metro. We often also we do it. I mean, how do you do the metro planning, right? Urban case, many of the Indian cities, they are planning for metro, right? So how you estimate the metro? How much demand it will be served? Bring metro just another mode of transport, right? And remember that if somebody tells you that, for quite some time, I worked in some of the projects in abroad also, where some cities they wanted to introduce public transport system, and they wanted the demand modeling part to be done by me, and then say how much bus can take. I say how much bus can take. I cannot reply. It depends on the what kind of bus system you are introducing. So the characteristics are the key. So similarly, if you are introducing a metro, okay, connection, physically which point to which point, where the stations will be there, all these things will be very important, right? But at the same time, you have to also say that because it is a competing mode, it is a competing mode of so it will depends on, right, that how much is the travel time by metro, how much is the cost by metro, what is the waiting time, okay, all such kind of things. Because ultimately, end-to-end point is very, very important. When you are taking a decision, maybe this metro or bus, everything, these are all predominant mode of transport. Okay? So you can bring into consideration whether it is water, wherever water is available, or you want to explore, you can consider water as an alternative mode. Uh, it can be rail-based transport, right? Different forms of rail. So bringing it, just think that this is another alternative. So the mode choice part, what when I cover, I actually discuss in great details about how the choice decisions are made. So fundamental things are again same. You are making choice between car and bus, or car, bus and rail. Car, bus, rail and water transport. Are they different? They're not different. Everything is an alternative. So you have to think how reasonably and nicely, you can actually represent that alternative or in a realistic manner as far as possible. See, any model will have some error. Any model will have some error. But you have to bring the context properly, and in a reasonable way, you have to represent that alternative. And remember that that kind of alternatives are always there. And that's why the existing alternatives you can consider, new alternatives you can consider. The same thing when you take a route, you will see that when I talk about the traffic assignment part, you suppose develop a new route, right? You will be able to say also because how much demand is likely to get shifted to that route, because that's another alternative which is getting added. So all I want that in my model, whatever parameters or factors I have considered, I need to consider those values appropriately for the new alternative. Then you can remaining thing is very simple. Okay. See, there are many things. The demand, the fear, everything will come. It will be like more costly, less costly. This is again a little bit ambiguous thing. See, the motivation or the basic idea is to be understood. See, for example, if you take the metro, right? For example, this is not a detailed discussion on metro only. Metro, forget about recovering the capital cost. Then also why people are going, because your recovery will never be uh, in no way will be commensurate to the investment. People even struggle to recover the operational cost. But it's again a matter of policy. Matter of policy means what? Because how much congestion is important for you, how much economic loss you are incurring, how much the environmental aspect is important to the society. You know that most of the big Indian cities, the air pollution is a very, very serious problem. So you want to bring eco-friendly mode of transport. The same is true for when we are trying to promote electric mobility as a whole, electric car, uh, electric vehicle, hybrid electric vehicle, all in different forms, right? So it's the demand model what we are developing. It can allow you to test various policies. That if I do this, if I give subsidy, if I don't give subsidy, how much will happen? If I give subsidy, then how my penetration will increase? If the penetration increase, how it will benefit the larger society in terms of reduced emission load, in terms of reduced congestion, energy efficiency, and then all those benefits will actually, try to dictate that or try to motivate the government whether you should give subsidy or not. That also has to be worked out based on all. The other aspect is very much the behavioral part is so important because you know that you develop a toll road. So how much is the cost and how much you need to charge to people to recover your cost? Maybe construction, maintenance, operational, everything, maybe only operational, mainly part of this thing. That's again a different aspect. But you need to how much you want to really charge to recover cost. Now another aspect is very important, that how much you are actually charging as compared to the perceived benefit of the user. Say, for example, if my value of travel time is 2 rupee per minute, then for half an hour saving, my perceived benefit is equivalent to 60 rupees. Now, if you improve the road and charge me 60 rupees, then there is practically no gain for me. Because what is my perceived benefit? You are taking everything from me as a toll. And one is a monetary cost and another is the equivalent monetary benefit. So there is again a difference, right? So the one has to see also that how much you need to charge and what proportion it is, uh, how it compares with the willingness to pay or the perceived value of the benefit. So there is a larger thing. then there are, whether you, like as you do normally in a road project or every project, you will also look at the economic analysis and work out the economic cost benefit thing. Those things are not really part of this work. But here the main focus is to give you an instrument. Now, that instrument or modeling thing is not the end. That adds value to one particular aspect, and then there are a lot of other components. So obviously, you need to understand many other things. Just by doing a UTSP course, one course, you cannot learn everything which are related to the urban transport. So many other aspects you need to learn. But you will see then all these components are very well integrated. And you need to understand all these components if you really want to contribute in a meaningful way. When planning for urban transit systems such as suburban train, metro system, how ridership is predicted, sir. In Chennai MRTS, suburban system is operating lower ridership than designed ridership. See, I tell you, this is a very interesting question. And probably what I was saying again is the same. If you are at the planning stage, if you are actually, if you do the travel demand modeling part nicely, you cannot be so far away from the reality. You can be to some extent. Nobody can say, because planning thing is also, perpetual kind of thing. There are so many uncertainties. You have to understand our limitation also, right? Even we say that decision making of individual, is it really so? Each individual, each of us is different, right? So it's a very complex task, human behavior, decision making, modeling. But if you have done the work properly, you cannot be so much far from the reality. Look at this project, what you are referring to, how the travel demand model was developed, whether they at all developed a travel demand model, and whether they actually used a scientific approach for modeling. Or if you just simply think A to B, that's the way most people think actually, and that's why they fail. Delhi Metro, the airport route is also another example. Look at this thing, how the ridership is getting projected. If you really follow a scientific approach, as we are demonstrating here, if you really develop, most crucial in this case is the mode choice model. So if you have really developed a disaggregate mode choice model, taking the proper behavioral data and your base data is correct, right? You think of that, how much is going to be the fare, how is the, transfer at the metro station, what is the transfer facilities, all these things you really consider, and a reasonable forecast cannot be so far from real. But if you just simply consider A to B presently 10,000 people are going, so I just construct a metro, my 10,000 people will come tomorrow in the metro. That's your assumption. That's not the reality, because there is no uh, homework, proper scientific work or model to do that. So this look at this project you are referring to, if possible, see whether there was any mode choice modeling was done, any travel demand model was developed, right? So if you do, that's what is our problem. Suppose you show the thing that, okay, so many people are using this facility, I upgrade it and then I charge everybody so much amount, and then you show a very rosy picture, see my revenue will be so much. You are wrong. Because who tells you with those much, that much toll or charge, the demand is still going to be the same? It cannot be same. Demand is elastic. So the transport economics, that concept comes into picture. So all these get integrated. So nothing is really shortcut. Without understanding, without proper scientific analysis, basis, people think, I mean, so many people are traveling, so introduce the bus system, everybody will come. No, it depends on how you are operating the buses, what is the service characteristics, how much fare you are giving, and all the, other variables will control. And you do a proper modeling, do a proper work, it will reflect because it is scientific. There will still be error. I will not say that, uh, everything will be, every travel demand model will have some kind of error, but the error will be limited. It will not be so. Our thing is, if we don't do the proper travel demand modeling, this is again a problem in a much bigger way. Because remember that we cannot have the luxury of doing this kind of thing. You just imagine the country now requires really private investment. The PPP models are coming. So many different ways the PPP is working. Right? Again, I can discuss, but there is no end to it. Right? So this may not be the appropriate forum for a detailed discussion. But you are showing a very rosy picture, right? And telling them that you can earn a lot of profit. They're investing. And then half of the projects you find that the revenue profile is no way at par to the expectation or what was projected. Why this difference is there? The difference is there because the travel demand model was not done properly, right? You can do the survey, you can do the base estimate. Those are all important things, right? But the actual split, what will happen, how much it will get shifted, that depends on your travel demand. So the whole transportation, if you see, the travel demand model is actually a very, very important component. And throughout this course, probably we are somewhere or other talking about these demand models. Mode choice also is a demand model. Destination is also in a way demand model. Route choice, route assignment is also a demand model. And all this can be used. You want to use public transport system. You want to develop your bus system. The BRTS, many cities are developed. Look at this, how much demand model has been done. Demand model has to be there. Demand model has to be there. And if we don't do that, and then, these companies make huge loss, and then they become bankrupt, is that it's not the company, but it really affects the future of this country. Because in infrastructure, we need, private operators to come and invest. So if they get a jolt, somebody becomes, everything is gone by taking a project. Do you think the next time you float a project, people will be enthusiastic to bid? They will not. So it's very, very. Of course, there are even in BOT perspective also. If you say there are a lot of issues, the country is to us the whole private thing. The PPP is a new thing. Still, is a relatively new. So if you look at this, even the NHI, if you see the how they have changed different structure, how they have changed structure over time, all based from the experience. So there are certain issues, there are certain procedural aspects which we are learning. Those things are also important. Those are also important issue. And I am, saying that, admitting that there are a lot of things which we are learning also, right? And as a country, we are learning. So there will be some gaps, and over a period of time, those gaps will be, recovered. We will be able to recover those weaknesses and probably come up with, a much better structure. But every project, anything related to transport, the demand model is very, very important. So, being it a road project, being it a overall BRTS, being it a metro project, being it even a water transport project, the demand model is very, very important because at the end of the day, the success depends on how many people are using. Right? And you show that economic analysis, very rosy thing, financial analysis, very rosy thing. You simply know how these numbers are coming. It's all directly, related to the projected demand. So if your projected demand is wrong, all those reports have got no value. And that's what started happening. Look at these big projects, what this country, targeted. Many of the big projects, finally the ridership is nowhere. Same thing, everywhere. I mean, people start small airports, right? It's a very fantastic concept. They start it. Right? The airport, small airports will start operating from these places. What is the basis? Has anyone done the demand model part? Has anyone seen what will be the ridership with, the kind of service what you are going to operate? We don't do that properly. There are lacunas. Maybe some projects are done excellent in an excellent manner. There are always projects like that. But there are also projects where just it goes without a proper study. So what happens? You develop an airport, you start operating, then you incur loss, huge loss, and then after some time everything is stopped. Nothing is working. So there are examples, starting from the bus service to metro service to water transport service to air service. Everywhere the demand part is very important. And one thing you have to accept that in one course, just by doing one course, you cannot think that it's impossible for you to understand every aspect. It's not so easy. Right? But this is one very fundamental and one very basic course, which I hope will give you a good amount of understanding. But just by doing one course, you cannot cover, because so typically we say in the master's level, there are so many courses students do, even to just earn a master's MTech in transportation, right? So similarly, PhD students, even those who are also working again in the various research areas, they take so many other subjects. There are specialized areas. I say the travel behavior analysis. Travel behavior analysis itself could be a separate course. There are so many things, how to develop a travel demand model. Not many people can do that. Similarly, the goods movement itself, there are so many angles. So everything, obviously, we will not be able to cover just in one course, not even be able to cover in 4 or 5 courses, but the basic understanding what we give, go with those concepts, the cardinal thing, the basic understanding, then try to say for all of us it is true. I have also not done course during my student days on each and every aspect. No, but some basic things we have learned, right? And then apply your mind. Then you open the book. Then you look at the other available material. Google G is there. So Namo Google G, just put the thing, see the material with some basic understandings. Then with those, and then your own initiative, your own learning thing, you will be able to then solve many practical problems. And in different domains, you will be able to work. Okay. So, any other question? Any other question? I don't see any further questions. Okay, at the moment, no more question on the YouTube, but I will encourage you to post something, right? So it's really, that we teachers always love to see the students. This is probably in online mode, it is happening that I never see my students and who are doing the course. So that way the opportunity is very limited. Of course, I mean, sitting in home, you are able to access all the lectures, you are doing your assignment. That's a great opportunity. But rarely we get, opportunity to interact actually. Uh, Mr. Rajashekhar asked again, thanks for answering, sir. While preparing a comprehensive mobility plan for city, are authorities taking properly the travel demand model split, right? It should be done. I cannot say comments that nobody is checking, nobody is seeing. That is not true also. But really it should be done. It should be checked. Because what is the basis for? I mean, you see this, the mode choice part, the root choice part, and everything, anything you do, any kind of project you do, it is actually trying to influence the decision. It may be a push strategy, it may be a pull strategy, but it is trying to do something, trying to influence something. You give the VMS, say for example, right? Real-time information. What you are doing, you are trying to influence the behavior of people. That now I am traveling, I am selecting route based on just my perception. What is my perceived travel time, right? But if you are informing user, look at this thing, the real network, what is really happening, what is the condition now, right? Then you are giving a more realistic assessment, and then probably you expect people to choose a route which will give a better distribution of demand across different routes, and you will do a better condition. So anything you need to bring a new service, you introduce a C bus service, thinking that probably now it is an attractive service. So to some extent, maybe those who are using car or taxi will consider or find this as a competing mode, and they will be able to come and use this service. Right? So, for comprehensive mobility plan, it's really important how you can do comprehensive mobility plan with models. There are challenges. There are, different consultants. There are different, uh, okay. Someone asked, can you explain about the growth trend? Mm, okay. If I have understood it correctly, your question, maybe it is something where I probably said in the context of generation model. I'm not very sure. If it is not so, you can post a question again. But generally, growth trend means what? If you take a regression model, say for example, we are saying y as a function of a, right? Now, let's say a trip production model. We are saying that how much trips will be generated from a zone as a function of, say, maybe the population in that zone, maybe the other characteristics in that zone. So what will happen, considering the number of trips which are actually, uh, developed now under the present scenario, with the present population, with the present car ownership, and that too in different zones, we are trying to see how the changes in population, changes in car ownership, right, changes in income, right, how they are explaining the change in the trip. So you develop a model. Right? So, and then what I said, the t-value and the statistical significance is to ensure that the coefficient estimates are statistically significant. So then you have a model. Now, every model we do for what? Not for the current scenario. Current scenario, you can go and measure it. Why to model it? You are developing every model because you want to apply it for the future. So when you want to apply it for the future, I need an equation or a model like this, but also I need the future value of x1, x2, x3, because the future x1, x2, x3, once the future x1, x2, x3 are known, and if we know that the equation or the model is still valid in the future, then I will use the future value of x1, x2, x3 to get the future value of y. Correct? So how to get that x1, x2, x3? Mostly these things are done based on the trend analysis. So that means what will be the population? Okay, I will see that how the population growth has happened. Look at the trend, maybe fit an equation there also, year wise or time versus, what is the number? right? And the trend analysis say you actually try to forecast population, forecast car ownership, or forecast the number of registered vehicle in the thing. Right? So these are generally done from the trend analysis. So the trend analysis are basically simple model that over time how the growth has happened. So you don't bring a lot of causal variables. You don't try to model it in a complicated manner, right? So uh, I can simply say how the growth is happening in a state or in a city, right, or in a district or so. I can see that registered vehicle, how the number of registered vehicle has changed over time. And using that data, I can do a trend analysis to say that how much it will be there. That's the trend analysis and very simple model. But remember that there also you can model it in a much better way. For example, I can try to see that number of vehicles, how the number of vehicles going, that trend I have captured and I have predicted. But the other alternative could be, I try to see what is the real reason for growing the car ownership. Car ownership will not grow simply just it grows. There is a reason. So car ownership is controlled maybe by the income, average income. So I can again try to develop, understand the elasticity. I can try to relate it. The cause I try to relate, and then accordingly I also try to develop a model. So those models are also. Uh, okay. Uh, John, my research problem is to prepare a model by which an inland waterway network system for intermodal transportation system catering to Kerala could be developed, mainly free. Yes, that's quite an interesting thing, right? That's quite an interesting thing. Use the basic concept, but also I will say that say everything we cannot discuss like this in just a limited time in an online forum. But you again, the concept what you learn here, try to map that. But also please look at the literature which are related to freight transport, right? Because there are certain unique characteristics of freight transport, as I told you. So you have to little bit learn about additionally about the freight transport area. I will say that please look at the literature, additional literature which are related to the freight transport. You say when they have developed their models, what kind of variables they have used, what kind of models they have developed. The basic concept you will be able to borrow from this course, no problem. But there are certain additional things you have to learn. So please look at the relevant literature on particularly focusing the freight transport. As I say, the variables will be there, different, right? So if you have to choose a mode, a person has to make a choice, and you have to make the choice for the movement of freight. Then the freight characteristics also will come. So there you will not take probably the income of a person or the car ownership of a person or so, right? So you have to learn little bit more, a little better understanding, and see there are a lot of literature available. So please see those, but the basic concept, fundamental concept, will still be same, and it will be really fantastic because for Kerala, it's really I have also worked to some extent in a very limited manner, but you have lot of potential to use water transport advantageously for passenger transportation and for the freight transportation. But keep in mind, the network is very, very important. Anything, any transport system, public facilities, the networking is to be very good. Whether it's road transport, road also you need a network. You talk about the bus system, just one point to another point, you introduce one or two routes, it doesn't help, right? It has to be citywide in network. The rail transport also, metro rail. Metro rail is always successful in every cities across the world where there is a metro network. You will find there are blue line, green line, orange line. multiple places they are overlapping also, so that actually you have a network. What happens? At any point in the city you want to travel, you can travel by metro. Maybe you have to transfer. At certain station, you have to transfer from blue line to red line and so. Same is true for the water transport also. Right? Unless you have specific, maybe that's the point where everything originates. No other point things originate. But the distribution and also it will be different. So think of a water transport network. That will really be important. Don't miss that. Don't just think only 2 points, because if you want to make a bigger impact, it has to be the a network level. Could you please suggest a textbook to understand the subject urban transit system planning? Okay, the transit के ऊपर there are so many books. I am not able to remember immediately, but we will post it something. Okay, this Vuchi is one book. There are more. There are more books on transit planning. Also, look at this. Some manuals are there. Publicly available, public domain. Just transit capacity and level of service manual. Look at those. Just search it in the Google. You will get it. You can download. Fantastic. So many volumes, so many things. And those kind of manuals are manuals or guidelines, whatever they say, they are also like textbook, and it should be like that, right? So please search those books you read, okay? But many times try to read books which are actually giving the concept. There are many books related to urban transit system which are compilation of papers. You will find that different researchers, they have written one chapter each, and it's just a compilation. That kind of thing at this stage will not be much helpful for you. So where the basic concepts are there that you see, this Buchi's book is one of those. There are of course other things. And look at this transit quality and level of service manual. Quality of service or level of service, some of those keywords you search, there are beautiful documents available. And I don't know, looks like Rajshekar is having so many questions. So thank you, Rajshekar, for your interest. I don't know, you were a faculty somewhere or were from, you were attending the course. Okay. Okay. Since the four-stage process is mostly seen under urban transport, can use the same concept for non-urban areas. Okay. Well, again, it's matter of right the at which level you are doing the modeling, right? You remember in the beginning we said something. Uh, Suppose when you develop this, say, backbone infrastructure in this country, you will not bother about not look at the city level thing. What is really happening? What you will ensure? All these big projects, Kashmir to Kanyakumari, Saurashtra to Silchar, then Golden Quadrilateral, then the port connectivity thing. It's again a network. Countrywide, a backbone network. So when you look at that level, that's what you will focus. You will not focus on some minor road here and there connecting 2 points in a city or so. No. Then when you come to the regional level thing, then you look at the regional transport part. Then when you come to the city level context, you are focusing specifically on a city network. So there may be, you come to Kharagpur, the Kharagpur, then IIT is just one node. IIT Kharagpur is just maybe one zone, one node. You don't bother about the roads, what will connect hostel to the academic area. But when you focus again, only your whole study area is the IIT Kharagpur, then you will see where are the student hostel, where is the market, where is the academic building, and so on. Where are the labs? how the movements are happening. So at what level you are doing. The other thing is that uh, the basic difference, there is some fundamental difference, is the non-urban area. Non-urban facilities, mostly the congestion is not so much of a factor, right? So many of the algorithms, many of the things what we have to, look at the algorithms or the techniques or so, these are uncongested. That's one big difference. And the focus or the nature of the problem is very different. The kind of problems what we face in the context of rural transport and urban transport, they are not same. Say, for example, here you will say that you are probably thinking of condition, you are thinking of so much externalities and multipath, how the route choice will happen. In most cases, route choice is not the issue. The issue is basically the basic connectivity. So come to PMGSY project. How to ensure connectivity of a network? How all the points can be connected to an efficient network? Whether you come to a city, you are thinking which path to take. Think of the different problem. Here you are thinking about how to manage condition, how to manage externalities. There you are thinking how to provide basic facilities. So the problem and concerns are very different. Problems are there also. Rural transportation case. Problems are there also in urban transport. There are many problems. After 8 o'clock, probably no bus is available. So people who are living in the village area, they're not able to travel. Right? The access distance to bus stop is a big issue. The PMGSY road has developed road, but road development is not adequate in the rural area, in the context of rural transportation. Because just by giving road, it will not help, because the car ownership is low. Urban area, you develop the road and left it. That should be fine. But in rural area, it's not adequate. Rural area, you have to also think of the transportation. So how the feeder system can be designed. The design of feeder service. A lot of challenges are there related to that. Thanks, Raj Shekhar. All the best to you. You are a PG student from Anna University. Great. Uh, is effective for project work or research gives of American Society of Civil Engineering uh, is effective for project or journal. I could not follow this question, what you wanted to ask about this ASC, but if you are talking about ASC journals, they're very good journal. You can see if you are interested in some of the advanced topics and what is really happening now. Please look at this. Some student asked about the journal, maybe for his or her project or so. You should use actually good journal. That's one thing. No, please, you are referring to previous work. Please refer to the good journal papers, not just the local journal. So ASC, very good. ASC Journal of Transportation Engineering, ASC Journal of Infrastructure Systems, ASC Journal of Urban Planning and Development, then Transportation Research, Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D, Part E, a lot of different volumes are there focusing on different aspects. Then Transport Policy, right? There are many other good journals, but please refer to good journal paper. Thank you very much, sir, for your suggestion. Thank you. Thanks for your thing. So only thanks. Thank you so much. So any other question? I am happy. I have got no problem. Okay, whatever way I can interact with you, I would love to do that. So if there is any question further, fine. If there is no question, then we'll close. Let's wait for a minute or at least a few seconds. And of course, I think almost 1 hour, full 1 hour we utilized. So who is there from the NPTEL office? Yes. We have almost consumed the full time, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So, but still, if somebody still have a question, I would be happy to answer. Otherwise, my best wishes to all of you. Uh, uh, if, as I said, that we cannot teach you everything just in one course, not even in 10, even if you take 10 courses, you will not be able to teach everything. It's impossible. So the courses are, we are saying, the basic concept, the orientation of mind. That's what is very important. You try to look at the things in a slightly different way. That's what. The remaining, it will happen automatically, right? Any source which is available, it's available to all of us. You can develop further your understanding and try to apply it in a specific way, context-specific manner. Okay, so if there is no other question, then thank you so much once again from my side. And I wish you all the best. And I'm sure there will be more live session like this. And also we have the forums where you can post your questions. Please little bit, just don't look at, see the lecture only, but little bit spend time. Maybe not one time, but try to listen to the lectures 2-3 times. Look at the material, what we have given to you. These all PowerPoint presentations are also circulated. And along with the circulation, I have also mentioned some of the books, some sources, right? So please, try to look at those sources. Maybe, in a half an hour lecture, approximately, there is a limitation. So we give you the, book reference, the other sources or good material. So feel free to use those materials. Thank you so much. So should I close it now?
So just wait 30 seconds, sir.
Okay. But we
So just wait 30 seconds, sir.